Welcome back to another edition of the NFL Weekly Injury Report. I'm your host, Dr. John, and a bunch of injuries this week. I mean, it's the NFL, it happens, but these hurt a little bit too close to home because some of them are on my fantasy team. But we'll start with one of them, James Conner. He was twisted up on initially what was thought his ankle during a run this past week. He is now ruled out for the season with what is being called a foot injury, actually, and will require surgery. Fantasy-wise, Trey Benson is going to take over the lead duties this week. So look to pick him up if you're looking for a running back. Just pure volume-wise, he immediately enters the conversation as being a pretty good fantasy play week to week. So next up, CeeDee Lamb is going to be out at least 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. We've talked about that and what that means before on this show, but he's definitely going to miss at least 2 to 4 weeks. These high ankle sprains are a little bit tougher to deal with just because that interosseous membrane, which is what ends up being sprained, is responsible for not only being an attachment site for several muscles, but also helps to share load and weight between the tibia and the fibula. Mike Evans, another hamstring strain. I gotta be honest, when I saw this happen, I'm like, oh my gosh, I think it's last year. This one is allegedly less severe than what caused him to miss 4 weeks last season, but he's likely also going to be out 3 to 4 weeks moving forward. Igbuka had a snaps monitor on Sunday, another one on my fantasy team, like I mentioned. I didn't play him, and then I watched him like absolutely snag this beautiful ball and disrespect one of Baker Mayfield passes with one hand, snagging that over Sauce Gardner. So that made me feel good. But he's not listed on the injury report as of Wednesday. And with Evans out, expect him to take on an even bigger role that he already had with Chris Godwin out as well. Jaden Daniels, he practiced today. This is Thursday. He practiced on Thursday, and he says that he felt nothing, that he's ready to go. However, it's obviously up to the team doctors, but something to monitor going forward. It might be worth keeping Mariota in. Why take a risk this early in the season with your star quarterback, especially when Mariota and your offense still put up 40-some points against the Raiders. But another Washington injury. Terry McLaurin, wide receiver, he left Sunday's game in the second half due to a quad injury, and he's currently seeking another opinion. No word out yet exactly on what his timetable may be, but his status is currently up in the air and something to monitor going forward because he's a big piece, especially from a deep threat aspect for that Washington offense, whether it's Daniels or Mariota piloting that offense. Brock Purdy was limited in practice last week. He did not end up playing. It was another start for Mac Jones, but he was expected to practice this week and will continue to be evaluated from Wednesday into Thursday. And he's considered day-to-day, and he may be another last-second decision before the game. Mac Jones is winning kind of the same situations for Washington as it is for San Francisco, where it's, you're still winning games, you're being competitive. Why take the risk with putting your star quarterback into the fire too soon? Justin Fields practiced today on Thursday, but he's still not cleared from concussion protocol. So it remains to be seen if he will play, but him practicing is another good step forward. Whether it's a good step forward for the Jets, I don't know if there is a good step forward at this point, but it is a step in some direction. Now, this injury happened 2 weeks ago. We're talking about Jaydon Reed, the wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, who made a heck of a catch for a touchdown that was wiped out against Dallas by a penalty. During that same play, he landed on that shoulder and fractured his collarbone. He was placed on IR, and he had surgery for his collarbone, as well as allegedly, possibly, his Jones fracture as well, which we had mentioned previously in the show he was coming back from. Now, typically, the way that you fracture your clavicle or your collarbone is whenever you land on that shoulder, when you have direct impact into the ground or something immovable, for example. Most often, these fractures are seen in the middle of the clavicle itself, followed by closer to the AC joint, and then ultimately the least common, closest to the sternum. It depends on the severity of the fracture, but more often than not, especially, and we're specifically talking about Jaydon Reed here, surgery was required. So initially, they're going to put some internal fixations in, some screws, some plates to bring those two ends of the bone together that fractured and allow for the healing process to begin so that the fracture isn't displaced. From there, then, he's probably going to be a sling for a couple of weeks just to protect the initial injury site and allow for the healing process to begin before you start to add in any type of motion and moving it around. Then he's going to start with some rehab, some PT, working initially on just passive range of motion, so the therapist or the trainer is moving it for him, and some manual treatment to reduce pain, swelling, inflammation, and things of that nature. Now, the surgeon may suggest keeping the arm below, for example, 90 degrees of flexion for the first 4 to 6 weeks, as well as avoiding excessive rotation and not lifting more than 1 to 2 pounds. Every surgeon has their own protocol that's just a little bit different, but some of those are pretty standard within the first part, the first stage of that rehab process for a clavicle fracture. Moving forward from there, you're going to progressively start to increase not only range of motion passively, but working in active assisted range of motion, where the athlete helps to initiate that motion themselves, but not doing it fully on their own. And then finally active, where they are doing it fully on their own. And using that arm that was operated on that had the fracture, working it in with strengthening, and ultimately those return to sport activities. Typically, you're looking at a 3 to 4 month recovery. High contact athletes might take a little bit longer simply because of the fact of contact, right? Which is quite literally how this fracture happened for Reed and how most of these fractures occur for that clavicle. But that's a little bit more of an in-depth read into, that's ironic, no pun intended. That's a more in-depth read into Jaydon Reed. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if there's anybody you want to hear about. But we'll look forward to next week, and hopefully the Jets find a way to not lose by a field goal against the Dolphins, because, man, if we go to 0-4 against the Dolphins, it's not going to be good. We might go 0-17. I might believe it. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.